Josh Heupel has gotten an extension from the University of Tennessee that will run into the year of 2030. The most consistent that Tennessee has been over the last 2 decades has been under head coach Josh Heupel. Your thoughts on him getting an extension at Tennessee?
Yeah, this is one of the most warranted extensions that we've had happen for a coach in the past couple of years. There's been a couple questionable ones, like the Brent Venables one, but Heupel has completely earned this. I know it's not exactly like your big, grand, massive extension with a huge deal that puts him in the top 3 of coaches, but to have this continue to expand through 2030, I think shows, 1, the school's commitment to Heupel, and 2, the vision for what he's done to this team. I think some people forget how bad Tennessee was for a stretch.
Right.
Late 2000s, 2010s, they were not a good team. They were not. It was cycling in and out coaches. He is the 2nd highest winning percentage coach at Tennessee in the last 5 decades.
Is it Philip Fulmer, number 1?
I didn't check that, okay, but I believe that is the correct answer. The other part about this that I think is pretty nuts too, I think that we discount who he is as a coach. And what I mean by that is we just automatically assume that Heupel has been this high-flying, schematic, passing first coach that has not generated enough balance. The reason why this team has gotten better is on both sides of the ball. They've been tremendous. They have been one of the best teams in run defense over the last couple of years. In the last 2 seasons, they've led the SEC in rushing. In 2021, they were in 2nd. In 2022, they were 6th in the SEC in rushing, but they led all of college football in total offense. He has turned Tennessee into a team that can be consistently good. But I think the most important part, Blake, Heupel has built a foundation that most programs do not have, where they will burn early, they'll start burning bright, and then they'll fall apart. I think that this progressive improvement year by year has been a big reason why Heupel is in here for the long run.
We got to understand something. So you took my take from me in reference to, look, when he was hired and Danny White, who was his former AD, who Danny White gets the AD job at Tennessee, he brings Josh Heupel with him when that job opens up. Skull Can is what I call him. But Jeremy Pruitt was released from his duties because of the whole scandal and recruiting and McDonald's bags and all that stuff. Heupel comes in, and I think the perception was when he came in, it's going to be nothing but high flying around Tennessee. And look, in 2022 it was. And I think that there has been a misconception from the fan base, other fan bases. Bases. That who he is as a coach. Joey's been very adaptable to who he is. Joe, his quarterback stunk a lot last year. And I'm not trying to make fun of Nico and go down that rabbit hole and get Tennessee fans all fired up because he stunk. He stunk. They ran the football and got to a playoff. They ran the football, but made Dylan Sampson the SEC Player of the Year, and they got to a playoff because of it. You beat Alabama because you were really tough defensively, and you built a culture from within. Listen, I know Heupel's had his issues and had his moments. The whole Boo Carter situation this whole offseason. Then you had the Nico thing, and a lot of people have questioned the culture of what's been going on. But, Joe, they're not putting up with your shit. And I think that, listen, it took a lot to get Boo Carter back in here. And we're going to see this weekend what really happens with Boo Carter at safety. I think when you get in situations, I've seen this firsthand. I've lived it. When a team has been bad for so long and you got to rebuild, and you got a guy like Heupel that comes and knocks on the door. They've been better in recruiting. They've been better at going and getting top-end dudes. They got Faison Brandon, the quarterback, committed. Joe, they've been really good at building from within. Now, that does not mean that this season's going to go well for them because they got put in a very tricky spot. And the very tricky spot that they got put in was because Nico and his dad did some really shady things. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
So you get to a situation where, Joe, we all thought this was going to be offense. A lot of us thought that this was going to be the Lincoln Riley of the SEC, where you're nothing but offense and defense goes to the back burner. No, it's been defense on the front burner, and they've been trying to figure out some quarterback situations post Hendon Hooker. when he gets that figured out, they're going to be high flying because, Joe, they might not have the overall number one recruiting class every year, but what they have done better than most teams around the country, they've scouted well, they've identified well, and they've developed well. And that's why they've taken such big leaps defensively and why this is so good for Tennessee. He's been the most consistent. Let's call it what he has been the most consistent. He has brought Tennessee back to some relevancy. I know a lot of people will snark, well, what has he done outside of 2022? He's put Tennessee, he brought him to a playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, his best player last year went down in the first quarter. I mean, that's like, Joe, that's like saying if Jeremiah Smith or Walker Howard would have went down last year for Ohio State in a playoff. Like, what are we talking about? And so I think there are a lot of things that we get misconceived about how good Heupel has been at the University of Tennessee.
I also think one other part about this that should be brought up, and then I've got a problematic angle that we should also bring up.
You problematic? No way.
Hey, settle down. I think that he deserves tremendous credit, too, for how he handled the Nico situation because I think a lot of coaches would not have known how to navigate that. I think that it was such a unique and also just batshit spot to be in that your star quarterback that you thought was a building block for your program was locked in and ready to go. Nobody expects a guy to try to renegotiate in the middle of the spring for him. And we talked about this when this all happened. For him to say, I'm not putting up with that BS. I'm not starting a bad precedent for this team for a guy who frankly has not earned it. If you want to leave, you leave. And that's what happened. That required, I think, a lot of fortitude and balls. Yeah. The problematic angle that I bring up, though, he's extended through 2030, and I think that this is the extension is long enough to protect from this happening. Am I being lazy in saying that I feel like that this is deliberate to make sure that there are extra years on his contract so that Oklahoma at the end of this season or maybe the next doesn't try to pick up the phone and try to convince him to come?
I thought about that. And here's the thing with me on that I came down to the conclusion on. Yes, I think that that's a part of it, but I also think it's a part of we got to look at Josh Heupel's career and situation. He wins at Oklahoma as a quarterback. He becomes their OC and gets fired. Okay. It was a big deal. Heupel going back to Oklahoma and he beats him. I don't think he's leaving Danny White. And I don't know how you don't. Joe, if I would have told you 5 years ago that Tennessee, even in an extended playoff, would have gotten to an extension of a playoff in 12 teams, that they would have gotten a playoff, you would have laughed. They were 6-6. They were 6-6. They were a dumpster fire. They were losing to Vanderbilt. Bad Vanderbilt. Diego Pavialis Vanderbilt. At home. Okay, so I think there's two folds of this. You got to extend him, right? Like, I mean, these contracts for coaches are getting ridiculous, okay? It's a 5-year contract. We've talked about this a lot. Joe, in today's world, you can't have a contract and it's not at minimum a 4-year deal. You can't, because recruiting is recruiting is recruiting is recruiting. You got to show faith. However, you can't convince me that Oklahoma will not spend an enormous amount of money to get him home. Can't convince me. And I agree. That was actually my last point on this, and you just stole it from me again. But okay. I agree. I do agree that Oklahoma, if you don't hit here with Venables, Joe, I mean, like, where do you turn here?
I bet it's the first call that they make. I don't think that Heupel leaves. I agree with you that.
Can it be? Because if you got to pay $65 million, say you fire Venables at the end of the year, hypothetically speaking, you're going to spend $50-60 million? Because I don't think that's happening.
Let's see see if I can find his buyout.
By the way, Venables just got a contract extension. What's his buyout?
His Wait, what does this say? Heupel left UT on his own before December 15th, 2025. He would owe the university $8 million.
Oh.
That's an awfully small buyout.
Ruh-roh.
This is per Knox News in Knoxville,
Leaves
Tennessee.
before what date? Leaves before what date?
December 15th
of this year?
Yeah. And I don't know.
I wonder what it is. I wonder what it is now that the contract extensions happen. After December 15th.
Well, right, but this article was updated after the contract extension. So I don't. But unless this is reported wrong, that seems so low.
That is very low. Maybe
$8 million. If Oklahoma only had to pay $8 million to get him,
our whole staff. What is Venables' buyout? And then, I mean, you spend $8 million to get. But see here, it says December 8th of this year or December 15th of this year, which means to tell me that there's going to be a bigger buyout after that. Because it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't state that. It doesn't state that in this.
We'll figure that out. Yeah, we'll figure.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's interesting though.
Very interesting. All right.